3, 2, 1, we're live.
Welcome to the 2023 public hearing for the Water and Sewer Commission. I am Dan Rodriguez, the current chair, with my two commissioners. Let them introduce themselves.
Vanessa Otero.
Matthew Donlin.
And at this point, for the agenda review, to kick off the meeting, I turn it over to Jamie.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Rodriguez. And welcome everyone to the public hearing for the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission's proposed fiscal year 2024 budget. Next slide, please. We'll dive right in. My name is Jamie Bartak, and I am the Communications Manager here at the Commission. Our presentation this evening will explain the annual process to establish rates for next year, what our proposed rates are, and what they will fund. We also want to present this as an opportunity to hear your comments and questions about our proposed budget. Next slide, please. But first, we would like to review some housekeeping. Tonight, we'll be providing a presentation followed by time to submit comments or ask questions. During the presentation, we ask that participants please mute their phones, computers, and devices. If you are participating on a computer or mobile device, you may type questions into the Q&A box at any time during the presentation. Questions and comments will be moderated and all will be addressed at the conclusion of the presentation. We ask that you include your name and address or city of residence when you submit a comment or question. If you wish to speak to ask your question, please dial in from your phone using the call-in information provided. At the end of the presentation, a moderator will call on the last 4 digits of each telephone number to provide an orderly chance for each caller to speak if they wish. Please try to limit your questions to 3 minutes to allow time for all of those who may wish to speak. If the streaming or audio is disrupted for any reason, please go to our Facebook and Twitter pages at SPFLD Water Sewer, where a new link and call-in information will be posted as quickly as possible so that we can resume the event. After the hearing, you may also send questions or comments to info@waterandsewer.org or call 413-452-1302. Finally, I should mention that this event is being recorded, including the public discussion, and will be posted to our website after the hearing. We also have Spanish translation available this evening. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Vicky Baez, who will provide translation assistance. Vicky?
Thank you. Buenas noches y bienvenido. Mi nombre es Vicky Baez. Quiero repasar con ustedes algunos detalles sobre la presentación de esta noche. Por favor, manténgase su micrófono en silencio. Las preguntas y respuestas se abordarán de la presentación, límite de 3 minutos, por favor. Los participantes pueden escribir sus preguntas o comentarios en el cuadro de preguntas y respuestas en cualquier momento o llamar al 413-261-6430 o el número de identificación estará ahí. Para hablar al final de la presentación, presione estrella 6 para hablar. Para proveer la oportunidad de hablar, se llamará a los participantes telefónicos utilizando los últimos 4 dígitos de su número de teléfono. Traducción al español se estará disponible para preguntas y comentarios. Las preguntas y comentarios también pueden enviarse por correo electrónico a info@waterandsewer.org o comunicarse por teléfono al 413-452-1302 después de la presentación. Si este evento es interrumpido por alguna razón, conéctese con la página social, Facebook o Twitter, @Springfield Water Sewer, donde se publicará un nuevo avance e información de llamada lo más rápido posible para que podamos reiniciar el evento. Finalmente, queremos informarle que este evento está siendo grabado y será posteado en nuestro sitio web después de la audiencia. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Now let's get started. Next slide, please. The Springfield Water and Sewer Commission was established in 1996 as an independent public regional water and sewer utility. Before that time, it was a department within the City of Springfield's municipal structure. The Commission operates today pursuant to Chapter 40N of the Massachusetts General Laws and with a 3-member board appointed by the City of Springfield's mayor and approved by City Council. We provide retail, wholesale, and peak and emergency water and sewer service to 10 communities in the Lower Pioneer Valley. Next slide, please. Clean water is such an integral part of our daily lives, it's easy to lose sight of how it makes it there and all the work that goes on behind. So here's a quick run through of the main elements of our work. Our main water supply is Borden Brook and Cobble Mountain Reservoir, which are located in Blandford and Granville, 20 miles to the west of the city. They are surrounded by 14,000 acres of protected water supply forest that is managed by the Commission. Borden Brook was constructed in 1909 and Cobble Reservoir was constructed in 1930. From there, raw water travels by gravity onto West Parish Filter's water treatment plant in Westfield, where water is treated for consumption and use. West Parish Filters was originally built in 1909 and underwent its last significant modernization in 1974. Components from both eras are still in use today. After treatment, water continues by gravity through our transmission system and into the distribution system in the city, which is comprised of 579 miles of pipes. 40% of the length of that pipe is 75 years or older. Next slide, please. After your water flows into your drain or toilet, it then enters our sewer collection system, which is comprised of 473 miles of pipe, significant portions of which date from the late 1880s. Wastewater flows to our wastewater treatment plant on Bonnie's Island in Agawam. The plant there was built in 1938 and also last modernized in 1972. There, wastewater is cleaned and treated for eventual return to the Connecticut River. Part of this legacy system includes 23 combined sewer outfalls, or CSOs, which date from the original construction of the sewers. CSOs are designed to discharge both wastewater and stormwater into waterways during large storm events, and we'll touch on these in a few moments. Next slide, please. The central player in that water journey that I just described is you, our customers. The work we do is dedicated to protecting the safety of the water you drink, the reliability of the fire hydrants in your neighborhood, and the cleanliness of the environment around you. It's a mission we are honored to have and take very seriously. Because public health and safety are so important, there are many regulations that shape our work, and complying with them is a part of our core mission. You might notice that many of the regulations listed here were developed sometimes decades after much of our infrastructure was built. There is also often no funding associated with these regulations. For example, CSOs are highly regulated now by EPA, though there is currently no federal funding associated with CSO regulations. Next slide, please. This map provides a quick visual extent of our drinking water and wastewater system. We serve Springfield and Ludlow drinking water in a retail capacity, which means we own and maintain all of the drinking water distribution infrastructure in those communities, and customers are billed directly by us. We serve several other surrounding communities with wholesale or peak and emergency drinking water as well. For wastewater, we serve Springfield in a retail capacity and own and maintain the sewer collection system in the city. We serve 6 other communities with wholesale wastewater service. So as you can see here, the infrastructure that enables your drinking water and sewer service stretches across the region. It's a lot of infrastructure to maintain and covers a lot of ground. Next slide, please. To keep all that infrastructure running, our services and debt for capital projects are almost entirely funded by rates from retail and wholesale customers. We are a public utility, so rates are not designed to generate a profit. We receive no local, state, or federal tax revenue. Any federal or state funding that we do receive is mostly in the form of loans. Next slide, please. So why only loans? As I was describing our system, you may have noticed I mentioned a lot of our newer infrastructure was upgraded in the 1970s. And in fact, back then, most of those upgrades were paid for by the federal government. Unfortunately, times have changed. Direct federal investment has all but evaporated since the 1970s. And unlike transportation, where there are fixed funding streams such as the gas tax that regularly flows to states for roads, water systems in this country are by and large funded at the local level. You might have heard about funding associated with the recent bipartisan infrastructure law or Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act, or even heard our own announcement in 2021 about our $250 million loan from EPA's Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, also known as WIFIA program. So we can say that in recent years, there has been a renewed interest in water at the federal level, which we are grateful for. But for this type of infrastructure renewal we need here in Springfield, it's still generally tied to loans. For example, there is funding through the IIJA and through the last of the state COVID ARPA funding, but this flows through the state revolving fund, administered by the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, in the form of loan forgiveness. And we have qualified for loan forgiveness in this way, but none of that funding would come to us without a loan in the first place. There are a few other funding opportunities listed here, and we pursue them, but they tend to be limited, competitive, and generally smaller in scale. So the important thing to remember is that unlike in the 1970s, most of this new federal funding is in the form of loans. Next slide, please. Outside of federal loan programs or special grant opportunities that may arise, our day-to-day funding options for water infrastructure projects are the following. First, rates. But it is not practical to raise the rates to pay for projects as we go along, particularly for large-scale projects. The rate spikes would be unsustainable and unaffordable. So instead, we need to borrow. And in terms of borrowing, there are two main sources. First is the State Revolving Fund, or SRF, which is limited in terms of how much we can borrow each year and is competitive. And then there are bonds, which are the most costly since we pay market rate interest for them. So to do large-scale projects, we must pursue a combination of all of the above. The chart here shows the pattern of rate increases since 1990, which follows a similar pattern across the country. In the 1990s, infrastructure was still relatively new following the federal investments of the 1970s. By the 1990s, federal water and wastewater regulations started to become more stringent, but by then, federal investment had dropped off. Springfield Stories offers a direct illustration. In the early 2000s, the federal government issued an administrative order to the Commission and many other Massachusetts communities to remediate their combined sewer overflows. So the Commission began to borrow to invest in such wastewater projects, and rates started to rise to pay for them. We have now entered a time when drinking water needs are becoming more urgent, and all the while, direct federal or state investment has not returned to 1970s levels. Overall, the average rate increase for this time period has been a little above 8%. Next slide, please. I've taken the time to describe our funding options since it's directly related to a core initiative of ours, the Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Renewal Program, which we launched in 2021. As I noted earlier, in many cases, we are working with early and mid-20th century technology and infrastructure, but need to respond to mid-21st century conditions and demands. Water infrastructure renewal is becoming more pressing and unavoidable as time goes on due to our system's age. So currently we have over 20 projects that address our most urgent needs, with most of them set to be ongoing over the next 6 years. This type of accelerated capital investment is intended to save on overall costs and also make the system functional in an era of new regulations, stresses from climate change, and new demands and opportunities found in science and technology. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Executive Director, Josh Schimmel, who will describe how all this fits into our proposed budget. Josh?
Great, thanks, Jamie. We're going to jump right in here and talk about our budgeting process and the need for capital investment. But as we do that, I do want to send a very clear message, and that is when we invest in our water infrastructure, we are investing in you, in the communities we serve, and in the environment. Investment in water infrastructure is a foundational element of public health and safety, economic development, and quality of life. Clean water is essential. We have seen too many examples recently of what happens when you do not invest in critical water infrastructure. Next slide, please. So with that, this slide speaks to how we establish rates each year. Our goal each year is to establish a rate that supports the required investments in capital and operations and maintenance. But the annual rate itself also needs to reflect appropriate levels of planning so that rates remain stable and that the continuous delivery of our services remains reliable. This includes avoiding rate spikes so that moderate rate increases accurately reflect the value and the cost of providing these essential services. Because we operate 24/7, 365 and need to provide these services for generations to come, it is important to understand that our planning horizon is not this year or next year, it's the next 20 to 40 years. And when we look at the planning horizon, rates and affordability are obviously a critical element of sustainability. So this slide details how the commission identifies spending needs, forecasts revenues, identifies revenue requirements to support those needs, and establishes an appropriate rate. Other factors in rate setting equations include adhering to financial policies to ensure the commission's ability to continue to finance capital improvements. Next slide, please. So this brings us to the key budgetary drivers, which is an unprecedented need for investment and modernization of our water and wastewater systems. So why now? It's now because the convergence of aging infrastructure approaching or beyond its design life expectancy, new regulations requiring advanced treatment and utilization of new technologies that did not exist when our infrastructure was designed and built, increased pressure on our system's ability to operate due to extreme weather events, climate change, and the need to protect our critical resources from threats that did not exist previously. First, let's talk about aging infrastructure. Many critical assets of ours have been in continuous service since the early 1900s, and the majority of our critical assets are between 50 and 90 years old. We are using equipment and technology designed to work in a completely different era for different problems than we have now. Simply put, our infrastructure was not designed for today's challenges, and although we've been able to optimize our ability to operate over the years, it has become evident that modernization is needed to provide safe, reliable water and wastewater services. Regulations are also a driver. Meeting today's regulations with yesterday's technology presents a constant challenge and can be seen playing out at our water treatment plant. Whereas you most certainly know, we have struggled with water quality compliance due to the limitations of our infrastructure. There is no better example to demonstrate why investment is needed than this. As science's understanding of all things water advances, it results in new regulations, and new regulations almost always require new technology, and in turn, new investment to be in compliance. New regulations put pressure on rates. The changes that we have experienced with respect to extreme weather events in the past 10 years has been impactful. It is the largest single contributing factor in our drinking water quality non-compliance. Changes to weather patterns have and will continue to stress our existing infrastructure. Our infrastructure built in 1890, 1909, and 1930, as Jamie had mentioned, was not designed for and had not seen storm series like it has in the past 10 years. And lastly, it has never been more evident than now how critically important our infrastructure and our natural resources are. With the threats of deliberate and accidental contamination potentially rendering a water source as non-potable, from random acts of vandalism to domestic terrorism, and from deliberate acts of cybercrime, our water and wastewater infrastructure needs to not only be modernized, but secured and protected. This convergence and the need for reinvestment is not unique to Springfield Water and Sewer Commission. This is being experienced by water and wastewater utilities and municipalities across the country. Next slide. Again, not to belabor the point, but to give real examples why this level of investment is critically important. These are examples from our existing West Parish Filters water treatment plant, which is in the process of being completely replaced. As we just stated, we have struggled with compliance with some drinking water regulations for more than 3 years. These are the public notices that we send out when the violations occur. The violations occur because our infrastructure is not capable of consistently treating water to today's modern standards. But the story isn't just that. The reality is that we have critical infrastructure that is actively failing, and if it is not addressed, we will not be able to reliably provide our essential services. Here are several examples from the past few years that potentially could have interrupted water service to all of our customers. On the left is a 1970s actuator that failed in a closed position on a critical valve and halted all water production. We had to hold the valve open with wrenches, as you can see here, for days before we could get parts to repair, as the parts were 50 years old and not available. The next slide shows a catastrophic failure of a rapid sand plant filter bed under drain in our newer plant, which, as we had stated, is 50 years old. A plant that is 50 years old and has been in continuous use since it was put online in 1974. Partial dam collapse is the next photo at our Settling Lagoon after back-to-back hurricanes in 2021. This speaks to the climate change. The dam is from 1909 and is a key part of the water treatment plant and poses a flooding risk to the site as well. And lastly, you can see tarps being utilized to prevent leakage into our treated water storage tanks that are circa 1920. Close calls are increasing. This is infrastructure that has to be replaced, and we are in the process of doing it. Next slide, please. So getting back to the process. Solving almost all of these challenges can only be accomplished through investment, and investment means spending money. So having a strong foundation for financing these efforts starts with financial planning. Our investments in infrastructure are expected to last 50 to 75 years. So our planning horizon needs to have the tools to look at operating costs, capital costs, debt payments, affordability, and rates for decades. These tools include sound financial policies and practices that provide strong financial position and ratings, reduced borrowing costs, and overall financial stability. Financial stability positions the Commission to finance projects in the most cost-effective manner. And to be clear, when we say finance projects, we mean take out loans that we pay back over time, very similar to a mortgage. The revenue generated from rates that we establish through this process are what pays the loans off. It's important to note that funding for initiatives like this is almost entirely limited to local ratepayers, as you. Even today, state and federal support for the critically important projects may only contribute 5 to 7% of the overall costs. Your bills pay for our investment. Although there has been some movement from state and federal grants to support water infrastructure, it still remains only a fraction of the actual cost to rebuild. Next slide, please. Combining the business intelligence gained from sound financial planning with an informed reinvestment strategy has allowed the Commission's plan to deliver a portfolio of projects in the most effective manner. And not just cost effective, but effective across a series of key performance areas that will serve our customers well for decades to come. Here's how. Cost effectiveness is achieved through innovative and competitive financing terms that the Commission has been able to obtain because of its financial planning and position. These are terms that will save our customers over $80 million in the next 30 years. This reduces pressure on rates. Project delivery is another key performance indicator. The Commission has been able to compress essentially a 20 to 25-year capital investment plan into 6 years. This reduces risks with aging infrastructure, increases reliability more quickly, and reduces overall costs. Everyone benefits the sooner these projects are completed. And flexibility is also another key component to this strategy. Being able to accurately model financing and project delivery scenarios allows the Commission to make informed decisions on the best possible ways to pay for projects and to compete for federal and state grants. Next slide, please. To that effect, the Commission has pursued and received eligible ARPA, IIJA, and BIL dollars, as well as a number of grants through a variety of mechanisms. It's important to note, however, that there are only a limited number of available grants. The bulk of this financial aid is related to loans. Of the estimated $15 million you see here, more than $14 million is tied to loans, and that presents more than $200 million worth of work. Next slide. Again, funding is the limiting factor in everything we do. So we have made a concerted effort over the past several years with our electeds, with state and federal funding agencies, and with you, our customers, to better educate you all about the true value of clean water and the challenges we are facing to finance these needed improvements while maintaining affordability. Next slide, please. As rates have increased, we understand and are sensitive to the impacts this has had and continues to have on the households we serve. We have a variety of programs available to customers that provide financial assistance to those that need it most, including the only LIHEAP-based customer assistance program in the Commonwealth. The Commission is committed to our customers and continues to evaluate the effectiveness of these programs each and every year so we can reach those in need. We offer generous payment plans, discounts for seniors, disabled persons, and disabled veterans. We offer free leak surveys and leak abatements, as well as the customer assistance program previously mentioned that can provide a credit of up to 25% of the average annual bill. Next slide, please. It is also important to note that our rates track with our investment. As we complete the unprecedented portfolio of projects, you can see that the anticipated reduction in rate increases. What you don't see are rate spikes or unstable trends in the rate structure. These are modest rate increases relative to the amount of work being done. Although rates are increasing, we are delivering new infrastructure in virtually every component of our water and wastewater systems. These are generational investments. Also important to note is that we have been able to keep the rate increases that we projected last year, in spite of unprecedented inflation, volatile bidding environments, labor shortages, and unequal supply chain disruption. This is a testament to our planning and rate management strategy. Next slide, please. This slide is the fiscal year 24 capital improvement projects budget. These are all the proposed capital projects for fiscal year 24, in addition to projects already adopted when we launched the water and wastewater infrastructure renewal plan. This is what the financing we're taking on will deliver. And this is the single largest year of budgeted capital projects at a total of almost $209 million. If you'd like to see the full detailed capital plan, it's available on our website. The proposed fiscal year 24 budget and rates will support the one-year capital improvement program budget for fiscal year 24. Next slide, please. And this is the proposed 3-year capital improvement plan, which for fiscal year 25 and 26 has a proposed total expenditure of $20.5 million, which, as I stated, is significantly less than the $209 million for this fiscal year. Now, I would like to hand this over to Darlene Buttrick, our Director of Engineering and Capital Projects, to provide a little more detail on the plan. Darlene?
Thank you, Josh. My name is Darlene Buttrick, and I'm the Director of Engineering at the Commission. I oversee the Commission's capital program, which includes our water and wastewater infrastructure renewal program. Next slide. The Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Renewal Program is a capital improvements program that includes more than $550 million in water and sewer upgrade projects, from treatment plants to the pipes running underneath the city streets. These are major projects that take years of planning, design, and construction, with some of the largest projects taking as long as 10 years to complete when all is put together. These are generational investments we are making, and we want to make sure we are getting it right. We have over 20 projects included in our program that are being completed over the next 5 years, which is a relatively short time frame for infrastructural renewal projects of this magnitude. Next slide. Many of the projects in our capital program were voted on in previous years. Tonight, we'll provide updates on some of the more significant projects in the portfolio. Next slide. Perhaps the most prominent project in our portfolio is the new West Parish Water Treatment Plant. The current water treatment plant has water quality compliance issues, including exceedances in HAA5, which is a disinfection byproduct. These problems are due to changes in our raw water quality caused by more extreme precipitation patterns, as well as outdated technology and end-of-life equipment, including some that dates to the early 1900s. We saw these risks emerging with the plant back in 2015, so we initiated a planning process to assess the condition of the systems and facilities and the ability of the plant to meet current and future water treatment regulations. The outcome was the need to build a new treatment plant, which includes adding a new treatment step that will remove organics from the water to address HAAs. The new plant will also eliminate our reliance on 1900s era technology. We recently completed the 60% design milestone for this cornerstone project. We are moving as fast as we can while also taking the necessary time to get this right, because we want this to last for generations. Once design is complete, the plans will need to be approved by local and state regulators. It is anticipated that construction will begin next year and be complete in 2028. Next slide. The first phase of the new plant, the Clearwell and Backwash Pump Station Replacement Project, is already under construction and is nearing completion. A clear well, for those of you who do not know, is a large chamber that holds filtered water that's used for various purposes, including the cleaning of filters, which is a process known as a backwash. The existing clear well had known leakage problems, so is currently capped with a tarp, which you can see in the top right photo. And the existing backwash pumps are from the 1970s and are at risk of failure with no redundancy, parts, or service available. This project is nearly complete, and we are expecting this to go online this fall. The cost of the project is $26.5 million, financed through the SRF program. In 2022, the Commission received a $4.96 million grant in the form of loan forgiveness for this project from the Clean Water Trust, and this will be reflected in future years once the project is complete. Next slide. On the wastewater side of things, another prominent project you may have noticed is our York Street Pump Station and Connecticut River Crossing project. We have been working on this project since 2019 at the site of the old York Street Jail. This project is also almost complete and will go online this summer. You may see news stories now and then about combined sewer overflows into the Connecticut River. This project is coming online in part to address those. The new pump station will replace an existing 1938 structure and vastly expand pumping capacity. 3 new river crossing pipes have also been laid in the bed of the Connecticut River, which will add to 2 existing pipes that were installed in the 1930s and 1970s and have never come offline for maintenance or inspections. This project is designed to meet multiple needs, adding redundancy so that we have flexibility to perform maintenance or repairs, addressing regulatory compliance for CSOs as more wastewater will be conveyed to the treatment plant instead of our waterways during heavy rain events, and resiliency as the old pump station will be repurposed for flood control. This project is financed through the State Revolving Fund program. The Commission received $5.6 million in loan forgiveness as part of the SRF program for this project. Next slide. Another significant treatment project includes our wastewater treatment plant upgrades at Bondi's Island. The wastewater treatment plant was last modernized in the 1970s. Environmental standards have changed since that time, and while we have been able to meet EPA environmental permit standards, we still need to improve the reliability and flexibility of the infrastructure and treatment process. This will ensure that we will continue to be able to meet current and future environmental permit standards and can rely on continuous treatment in all sorts of scenarios and conditions. This project includes electrical upgrades that will update a very old electrical system, making it more resilient by routing a 2-feed power system. In addition, the project includes aeration basin upgrades as part of a nutrient upgrade project. The upgrade equipment will be more energy efficient and will be more effective at the breakdown of waste, which will remove more nutrients. This makes for healthier rivers and estuaries and helps us with compliance with our new permit from EPA and puts us in a better position to deal with future requirements. Finally, grit removal will be added to the treatment process. This new system will more effectively remove sand and other things that find their way into the treatment plant. The removal of grit prior to the primary treatment tanks allow these tanks to become more efficient while reducing the wear and operating expense. This project is financed through the State Revolving Fund program. The Commission received $5.8 million in loan forgiveness as part of the SRF program for this project. Next slide. Last but not least, the Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Renewal Program includes a variety of drinking water and sewer main replacements to modernize the water and wastewater infrastructure in the city to improve service reliability and efficiency. This includes water infrastructure improvements at St. James Avenue, Burney Avenue, and the X, as well as water and sewer main work on Main Street, Locust Street, and Wilbraham Road. These updates are needed to ensure reliability, hydraulic performance, fire flow capacity, and in the case of sewer, to prevent backups like this one on Cherry Street that we have with more intense storm events. For these projects, we try to coordinate with other agencies doing work whenever we can to minimize disruptions. The projects are prioritized based on regular assessments and evaluations based on age and past issues so that we can target ratepayer money where it is needed most. For example, the sewer pipes on Locust Street date from 1873 and have been continuously online ever since. Now I will turn things over to Anthony, who will discuss the proposed budget and rates.
Thank you, Darlene. I'm Anthony Basile. I'm the comptroller with the Commission. The Springfield Water and Sewer Commission's financial structure is self-supporting, which means the revenues generated by the rates for providing water and sewer services are the primary source of revenue that is used to operate and maintain the system, and provide capital improvements. Next slide, please. What does it cost to deliver water and sewer services? Well, next year, we are estimating we will need to generate $105.7 million in revenue in the course of the fiscal year. As Jamie stated earlier, 95% of the annual revenues come from customer billings. You can see by this chart, the two largest portions of the pie chart represent the revenue from water and sewer rates that generate 82% of the overall revenue. This is a revenue that is derived from the residential, commercial, industrial, and municipal customers in the city of Springfield and in Ludlow. 13% of the revenue is generated from the regional water and sewer customers on a contractual basis. We provide both water and/or sewer services to the communities of Agawam, Longmeadow, East Longmeadow, Southwick, Ludlow, West Springfield, and Wilbraham. The remaining 5% of the anticipated revenue is generated from general sources, such as interest income and miscellaneous sources, plus power generation. The commission owns and operates a hydro plant in the town of Granville that facilitates power sales into the New England market. Next slide. Spending. The total spending category or total spending by category amounts to $105.7 million. The revenue generated needs to support the total operating and maintenance budget, which includes debt service as well as capital spending directly from revenues, plus any additional reserve requirements. Payroll and fringe benefits combined total 30% of the budget that supports 261 funded positions spaced throughout various locations of the commission. Purchase service accounts 28% of the budget and includes the service contract to operate and maintain the wastewater treatment plant at Bondi's Island and numerous pump stations. A new 20-year contract to operate the treatment plant began in October of 2020. 23% of the annual spending is for debt service to pay for scheduled principal and interest payments on outstanding loans and bond issues. We are utilizing $1.1 million of current year's funding to offset bonding and debt service requirements in the FY24 budget. This funding is available because of loans that were scheduled to be financed in FY23 were deferred to FY24. 4% of the overall budget is dedicated for supplies and materials, which includes the cost of chemicals necessary to treat water from Cobble Mountain down to our customers. The other category shown on the slide totals $2.3 million and includes line items for such things as property tax payments to other communities where we own land, property and liability insurance for system-wide coverage, other costs such as loan service charges and capital outlay for equipment and other small purchases. And lastly, the annual amount of new capital spending directly from revenue totals $13.3 million. This includes much of the costs needed for the day-to-day operations in the city, such as meter and hydrant replacements, main replacements, and the repair and maintenance of the commission's infrastructure. Next slide. This shows the same spending, $105.7 million in spending, but allocated across divisions. This shows where in our system we are spending. Combined administration and engineering accounts for 20% of our overall spending. Water supply, transmission, and distribution accounts for 38%, and wastewater treatment and sewer collection, 42%. Next slide. Budget process for the commission started back in December. The O&M budget is comprised of over 30 cost centers. Internally, we reviewed this budget with our directors and managers and took careful consideration in allocating the resources necessary in providing water and sewer services to our customers. This is the proposed O&M budget the Board of Commissioners will be voting on in June. The overall budget increased by approximately $9.3 million when compared to the approved FY23 budget. There are increases for contractual obligations for operations and personnel, as well as funding to pay down outstanding liabilities. The commission is managing its way through rising costs due to inflation. Some of the major line items affected by inflation are electricity, natural gas, fuel, as well as chemicals that are used to treat the water. Next slide, please. This table shows the Commission's proposed 3-year capital plan totaling $229 million. With 90% or $208 million of the new project costs included in the 1-year budget, as seen by the significant spike in the FY24 column. Most of the 1-year budget is targeted for the construction of the new water treatment plant and for upgrades of the hydropower station. As mentioned earlier, after FY24, the new project costs drop off in FY25 and FY26. Funding for the 3-year capital plan is split between sources. Approximately $34 million will be funded from annual revenues, and over $195 million will be financed through loans and bond issues. This slide signifies the Commission's commitment for continued investment to meet its infrastructure needs. The FY24 capital budget, combined with existing appropriations, will bring our total capital budget to over $550 million in approved and authorized projects. Next slide. Water and sewer rate changes. To keep this plan moving forward, and as projected last year at this time, the proposed increase in the water and sewer rates is 6.5%, which means an increase of $7.50 per month for the average user. The proposed water rate increase of 6.5% moves from $4.46 per 100 cubic feet to $4.75, and a 6.5% increase in sewer rates moves from $7.05 per 100 cubic feet to $7.51. And this is what it means to the average user. The typical household bill for water and sewer services is approximately $1,381. With this increase, that brings the average annual bill to $1,471 for FY24. That's approximately a $90 increase for the year, or as I said, a $7.50 per month to the average user. Now I would like to introduce Katie Shea, the Commission's Educational Outreach Manager, who will continue the presentation.
Great, thank you, Tony. I'm Katie Shea. I'm the Educational Outreach Manager for the Commission. Next slide, please. The updates that Tony just mentioned are all documented in the Commission's rules and regulations, which are our policies for rates, billing, service, and other procedures. The Commission makes updates to the rules and regulations to refine our policies and provide a better customer experience. Each year, these updates are voted on and approved by the Board of Commissioners. For more information or to view the rules and regulations, please visit our website, waterandsewer.org/rules and regulations. The updates to the rules and regulations for FY24 are highlighted on these next few slides. Next slide, please. And they include procedural updates related to approved contractors, meters, and improving service and billing. Next slide. The rules and regulations are also where the policies regarding the discount programs can be found. As was mentioned earlier, the senior, disabled, and disabled veteran homeowner discount will be increasing to $8.25 per month or $99 per year. Next slide. Also, in Chapter 5 of the Rules and Regulations is where all of the Commission's rates and fees can be found. Next slide. And finally, there will be a few updates to the definition section of the Rules and Regulations. Next slide. A complete summary of the proposed changes to the rules and regulations, as well as other FY24 budget and capital improvement program documents, which have been discussed here this evening, can be found on the Commission's FY24 budget webpage. Next slide. Tonight, we've highlighted the significant generational reinvestment that the Commission is making in our community. Over the course of the presentation, we have discussed our aging infrastructure, most of which ranges from 50 to more than 100 years old, that we still rely on every day. And while it's remarkable that some of this infrastructure has served us for a century or more, we must reinvest and modernize our system so that it continues to reliably serve our community for decades to come. But perhaps more essential than the pipes, valves, or treatment plants is our people. And the Commission is investing in the future of our workforce too. Next slide. Our dedicated team of 250 water professionals work in a variety of fields across the Commission. From the land stewards that monitor our watershed and help protect the drinking water supply, to the crews that respond 24/7 to an emergency water main break or sewer backup, to the team at West Parish Filters that staff the lab and treatment plant 365 days a year, holidays included, to ensure fresh, safe drinking water every day. Our team is essential to our mission. Next slide, please. And while we here at the Commission take great pride in what we do to deliver on that mission of providing drinking water and wastewater service, we know that it's easy to take this essential service for granted. Our infrastructure is buried underground or located miles from Springfield, out of sight and out of mind, which is why we spend a lot of time out in the Springfield community connecting with the public. We have a variety of educational and community outreach programs, including tours, collaborations with local schools, colleges, and environmental groups, and we also have scholarships and internships. Just this spring, we hosted 5th grade students at Ludlow Reservoir for hands-on activities to learn about water and the environment, while 7th graders found out where their flush goes during a tour and activities at the wastewater treatment plant on Bondi's Island. Next slide. As part of our outreach efforts, we also participate in many public meetings, including city council meetings and neighborhood council meetings. In recent months, we visited the McKnight and East Springfield neighborhood councils and the New North Citizen Councils to share with residents information about their drinking water and wastewater service, provide capital project updates, and distribute information about our many customer assistance programs. We also have the opportunity to participate in community events in which we provide our mobile water station and refillable water bottles. Our staff volunteer their time and enjoy meeting customers and answering questions at these events, which include some of the neighborhood organization events, Spirit of Springfield events like the Pancake Breakfast and Star Spangled Springfield, events with Springfield Public Schools and with the Springfield Police and C3 units, among many others. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, the Commission has embarked on a generational reinvestment in its infrastructure through the Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Renewal Program. But we're also investing in our people and building the water workforce of the future. The Commission and the water sector as a whole is facing a wave of retirements, as well as a need for a more skilled and technical workforce to maintain our more advanced systems. We know that young people may not be aware of the many rewarding career opportunities in the water sector, which is why this year the Commission launched the Pipeline Program, a work-based learning paid summer internship program for 12 Springfield High School students. It's one of the only water workforce development programs of its kind in the region. As part of the program, interns will participate in job shadowing and hands-on learning in several departments, including water operations, lab, watershed and environmental protection, wastewater operations, and information technology and cybersecurity. Interns will also have mentorship opportunities, team building, and will also take the Intro to Becoming a Public Water System Operator course through the Massachusetts Water Works Association. This course is the first step towards earning a license to become a public water system operator. Through the Pipeline Program, we will expose Springfield students to the many rewarding career opportunities here at the Commission, with the hope that they will become the next generation of stewards for the region's drinking water and wastewater systems. Next slide. And finally, we turn it to you, our customers and community members, and ask, what is the value of water? What does it mean to you, to your family, and to our community? And what would it mean if it was no longer there? You may have heard news stories in recent years of communities grappling with aging water systems and catastrophic failure of their water and wastewater infrastructure. The Commission is working now to address our aging system to help prevent a Jackson, Mississippi from occurring here. Because we know that you, our customers, and our community across the Lower Pioneer Valley rely on our essential service every day for daily life, public health, fire protection, and economic development. And the budget that we have presented tonight will fund the reinvestment in this essential system to ensure that we have reliable water and wastewater service for generations to come. Next slide, please. And now it is the opportunity for you to share your thoughts, questions, and feedback, which we will do in just a moment. But this is not your last chance. The proposed budget will not be voted on until an upcoming board meeting on June 15th at 9 a.m. Questions or comments can be shared with us before then by emailing info@waterandsewer.org or calling 413-452-1302. Please note that there will be no public comment session at the June 15th meeting, but comments and questions can be submitted by email or telephone ahead of the meeting and will be responded to accordingly. And of course, we're always available for your water and sewer service needs by phone, email, website, or social media. Next slide. Now is the opportunity for the Commission to hear from you. For those who have joined via telephone, each of you will be called on by the moderator using the last 4 digits of your telephone number. If you wish to speak when your number is called on, please press *6 to unmute your line and share your question or comment. As a reminder, please keep comments to 3 minutes to allow time for all those that may wish to speak. For those of you participating by computers or mobile devices, please type your questions into the Q&A box in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. If you wish to speak instead, please use the call-in number shown on this slide and wait to be called on. Please remember, everyone must provide their name and address if they wish to submit a comment or question via phone or Q&A box. Now I will turn it over to Vicky Baez.
Thank you, Katie. Preguntas y comentarios. Para participantes vía teléfono, espere al que el moderador llame los últimos 4 dígitos de su número de teléfono y luego presione el número *6 para hablar. Como recordar, los comentarios en 3 minutos para dar tiempo a todos aquellos que desean hablar, por favor. Para participantes, utilizando su computadora o celular, utilice el cuadro de preguntas y respuestas para enviar sus preguntas y comentarios o llame al 413-261-6430 o presione el número de identificación para hablar. Por favor, provea su nombre y dirección al someter su pregunta o comentario. Gracias. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Vicky. Before we open it for general participation, I would just like to ask the members of the board if they have any questions or comments they would like to share.
I think we'll probably have some comments towards the end. I don't have any questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we will open it up for public comment or questions. To start, we would like to ask if there are any current elected officials on the line that would like to share a question or a comment, and we would ask that they could go first. So if you are an elected official and have a question or a comment, you can hit *6 to unmute. Okay. Great. So if there are no elected officials, we will move on to the general public comment. Oh, yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi.
Yep.
Good evening. This is State Representative Orlando Ramos. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak for the commission. Thank you for that explanation and for giving us the overview on the status of the Water and Sewer Commission. As you know, I have been a very committed advocate for clean water and sewer here in the city of Springfield, both as a former city councilor and a state representative. The state legislature had allocated $204 million to the Clean Water Trust from last year's ARPA funds. In addition to that, we allocated an additional $104 million in the supplemental budget earlier this year, of which the Springfield Water and Sewer was the biggest benefactor of the first pot of money. I'm hoping you'll be able to benefit from that second pot of money as well. In addition to the $100,000 earmark that I secured in last year's budget. So, the state has really stepped up in trying to help with this. And I'm not sure if should we be calling it a preventative measure, right? We're trying to prevent a water crisis here in the city, but we made a pretty significant investment on the state level. And in meeting with the commissioners and the staff privately, I learned that there has also been a significant investment from the federal level. However, as of today, there hasn't been any investment from the city of Springfield, although the city of Springfield received $126 million in ARPA money, and water and sewer, water quality was one of the 4 categories in which the money could be spent. And so I guess I have a few questions relative to water quality, and then I have questions regarding affordability. I guess my first question is, what is the total increase in this year's budget compared to last year?
Thank you, Representative. Just before we go into the answers, if you could just state your address as part of the meeting procedures.
Oh, sure. 13 Woodrow Street, Springfield, Mass.
Great, thank you. And then Josh or Tony, I'll turn it to you.
Sure, Tony, why don't you answer that question if you can, please?
So the total increase in O&M was $9.3 million, as I previously stated. I think maybe what you're looking for is the overall spending, our capital plan as well. And that was a significant amount of money. I don't have that exact amount right now. I could look it up. However, what is attributable to the rates on an annual basis is the combination of what's in our O&M budget, plus our debt service and our capital spending from revenue, plus any reserve requirement that's needed in that year. So the rates that are increased supports that $9.3 million increase in our O&M budget.
And so I guess my concern is that there have been several increases in the last few years. I know for certain that in 2020 it was something around 5.5% after a 17% proposal. There was another increase. I think the original ask was 12.5% for 2021. I forget what it was in the end. So there have been consistent increases over the last few years. And I'm wondering, how do we get to a point where we're no longer asking for these pretty significant increases year after year after year? The cost of living has gone up and skyrocketed since COVID, and we still have many seniors who are living on a fixed income and cannot afford these utility hikes year after year. We have low-income people in the city of Springfield that just cannot afford, right, to pay these rates. And so, what sort of investment will it take? Ballpark dollar amount from either the city, the state, or federal government in order to avoid another significant rate hike next year?
I'll take that, Katie. Thanks for your comments, Representative Josh Schimmel, Executive Director here. So, there's a couple of components to that question that we can talk about. I'll address the seniors and low income right off the bat, because we absolutely do not leave those folks behind. And we always provide a safety net, and we continuously look at and update the programs to serve those folks that need the most help. And that's part of our annual process to make sure that we're reaching folks who truly can't afford the water services that we provide. In terms of when do rate increases stop, I'm unapologetic in the fact that we've had rate increases, I think, every year for the past 17 years, because these water systems need constant maintenance, constant renewal. These are 24/7, 365 systems that really haven't seen real investment in 50 years. So I think we showed a slide that really linked the investment with the rate increases. And so during this period of unprecedented investment in our communities and your constituents, you're going to see a peak of where we are about 6.5 to 8% increases. And then as those projects come online, you're going to see the rate increases decrease each and every year. And that's what is projected. And so I don't know that we're going to come to a time that we can see in the foreseeable future where we're going to say we can promise you no rate increases, because I don't think that's a reality. I think inflation being what it is has undermined a lot of the strategies that we've had, and yet we've still been able to deliver on our rate projections. And that's with a lot of hard work, a lot of cutting of budgets, a lot of maneuvering within what we can. And so to be realistic, I would say that rate increases will decline over time as we complete the investments that are at hand and investments that are needed, but certainly couldn't commit in any way, shape, or form to say there's not going to be a rate increase. Because if we don't do consistent rate increases and consistent rate increases without spikes, so that we're stable, we won't be able to continuously maintain and operate. And I think that's the problem that you're seeing across the country. That's Jackson. But that is the reality.
Josh,
No, I
there's
understand that. Yeah.
also important to point out, in addition, you started the conversation with this, and that is, as a commission, we're unique in that we are trying to address the different areas of our community that are in need. We're the only water and sewer utility that I know of in the state of Massachusetts that has a program where you can qualify for a reduced rate based on income. And our current updated senior citizen discounts actually exceed the increase, because the increase average is about $90 and the senior citizen discount's like $99.
Correct.
So while we're doing an unprecedented level of investment because it's just way overdue, we're also trying to do it in such a way that we impact the most needy and the most minimal manner possible, which is unique. I don't think there's another utility that does that I know of pretty much almost anywhere in New England. Anyhow.
Yeah.
That's correct, Commissioner. And as I said, I think, we are sensitive and very cognizant of the impacts we have on the households we serve. And so anytime we contemplate rate increases, we think about those folks that truly can't afford our services. And believe me, we have 250 staff members here who are committed to public service, and that means dealing with customers who are struggling to pay their bill. And, that's a day-to-day thing for us, dealing with those scenarios. And so I think we're very sensitive to that and really create rate increases that are moderate in nature, that are steady, that are predictable. So we're not seeing big spikes and wavering rate increases, and that each year we look at the services that we can provide to those are most needy. And I think we've done a fairly decent job to provide a safety net for those in our community that can't afford water.
Representative, I'm going
And I
to
appreciate
suggest,
that.
I'm going to suggest to the commission that maybe Katie, the representative, can be provided with materials that he could provide to his constituents in the event that they are asking for help with their water, particularly those of low income and elderly folks living on a fixed income. I'm sure you'll be happy to drop that off wherever necessary so that you have that handy.
Yes, that would be greatly appreciated.
Commissioner, if I could just respond for a minute to the representative. I think your question originally was, how can we not have the rate increases that we've had over the past? What steps do we need to do to try to address the continuing rate increases at the numbers we have? And we'll be glad to send this to you, but if you were to go back to in fiscal year 2022, after we got the WIFIA loan, we laid out at the public hearing about what the difference would be in the investments we need to make in infrastructure with the WIFIA loan and without the WIFIA loan. And I think you and many other people listening would agree that clearly we need to invest. We need to do the new West Parish treatment plant. We need to do the river crossing. And as stated before, the delegation has been helpful in getting money to the trust and funding it. But I will just go back and say, based on the work we're looking to do, we're able to borrow $250 million at approximately 1.87% interest over 30 years and do the work we're projecting. If we didn't have the WIFIA loan, the projected rate to do that work over the next from 22 up to about 26 would have been in a rate of 9.5 to 9%. By getting that loan and reducing our cost of borrowing, we were able to have rates over the past years, which we understand it's hard, but we've been able to hold the rates as we had set forth back in 2022 in the range of 6 to 6.5%. So I guess an answer to your question is, how do we prevent it? We prevent it by the commission and the staff and the commissioners looking to see what opportunities are out there to address the needs that we all agree we need to address at the most economical way in order to reduce the costs to all the ratepayers. And I think that's a prime example on the action taken by the commission to go after that loan, and the resulting being saving about 3.5% per year.
Norm, can you introduce yourself because you're off camera?
Oh, I'm sorry. Norman Guz, General Counsel for the Commission.
Thank you.
And that answers my question. I appreciate that. And I guess my point is that the only thing better than a low interest and no interest loan would be a grant, right? And that's I guess that's what I'm referring to. ARPA money was, again, water and sewer was one of the 4 categories in which ARPA money could be spent, and the city hasn't allocated a dime. So my ask from the city of Springfield is going to be, and this is just an FYI, $10 million shall be allocated to the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission from the city of Springfield's ARPA money. The state has made the investment, the federal government has made an investment, and now it's time for the city to step up. So again, I thank you for answering all of my questions. I'll leave it there. I know there are other folks with questions. We are joined by a few people here in the room. I believe a few of them have questions as well. So thank you for this opportunity, and I appreciate all of your work.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
Thank you. And so we will move on to our next caller, but I did want to remind, if there's anyone that is joined by their computer or mobile device and wanted to type a question into the chat box, you can type it into the Q&A box and we can review and answer your question or your comment. So the next number Katie, that I see, yes.
Can I interrupt, Katie? I just want to make sure if Representative Ramos has folks in the room with him that he just speak up so that their phone number may not be showing. So I just don't want to miss them.
Right. Yes. Thank you. I think just left. So the next number that I have is 8305. So the next number that
Good evening. This is Juan Latore, last number 8305. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you. Could you please just state your address and then your question or comment?
Yep, thank you so much. This is Juan Latore, the third, 122 Forest Hills Road in Springfield. Thanks so much for this presentation. It's my third or fourth time listening, very thorough. I'm gonna start with a couple of things I'm pleased about. I appreciate the opportunity to view this presentation and to hear directly from the commission. I appreciate the fact actually that you're proposing a 6.5% annual increase, which is what you've said you were going to need to do year after year on average for a very long time. So I appreciate the consistency there. I see representatives out in the community at public events. I want to give a special thanks to Miss Jamie Bartek. I apologize if I'm pronouncing the last name wrong, but I do see that she attends a number of civic association meetings in the city of Springfield to answer questions from residents. I'm here tonight because I certainly understand that we need to continue to invest in our sewer and water infrastructure. It's clear to me that a lack of investment maybe in the 80s, 90s, 2000s is resulting in a catch-up in what we're doing now in Westfield and other parts of the community. But I also want to talk about HAA5 and the impact that that is having on the perception of our water quality. And I just want to state for the record that there are a growing number of residents in the city of Springfield and surrounding communities that no longer feel comfortable with drinking or using our city's water because of their fears about HAA5. And my continued belief, as I've shared before, that the Sewer and Water Commission could and should be doing more to educate the public about HAA5. So I'm just going to mention, as I have before, some suggestions, including making sure we're getting out to every civic association every year, an infomercial on Channel 17, our public access, to better explain what it is and what it isn't, a monthly regular column written by the executive director, Mr. Schmel. I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong, to provide construction updates on West Parish Station. This is a great format here, but we're remote. I can't see you, really, you can't see me. I'd love to see you all in public, in accessible, culturally competent spaces within the city of Springfield, where people can talk to you all in person and get their questions answered in a back and forth dialogue. And I think that the city of Springfield does have an oversight role here. And I'm asking that the Water and Sewer Commission, commit to some public meetings with the Department of Health and Human Services, or maybe the Health and Human Services subcommittee of the City Council. I think all of these things, if they can be achieved, will better educate our residents. I agree with the comment earlier. We are not Jackson, Mississippi. We are not Flint, Michigan, but we're generally asking the residents of our city to live with these increased levels for about 10 years. Your quarterly notices mention everything is okay unless we're consuming water over a long period of time. 10 years is a long period of time. I think people are getting scared, and I think there's more that this commission can do. And so those are my suggestions. I certainly appreciate all your work that you do. You've got a very difficult job. I'm an engineer myself. I know it's not easy. And I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my opinion on the budget and where the Sewer and Water Commission can do more in terms of public advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latore, for your comments. Josh, I don't know if you have any comments or if we should move on to the next caller.
Sure, I'll comment on the comments just briefly, and appreciative of those, Mr. Latore, and they're always helpful for us, and we certainly benefit from having interactions with our customers and have never backed away from that. So We've made a concerted effort to be out into the community. Obviously, that's been hard over the past couple of years, but certainly we try to do our part to get out into all of the civic associations and et cetera. We also have met with the city council every time they have requested it and are glad to do so. So if there's any subcommittees that are interested in setting a meeting up with the commission staff, we're glad to do it. We've done it many, many times in person, specifically over the water quality violations, probably over the past 3 years. I want to say we've been at least 4 times in front of the council or council subcommittees. So we're glad to do that. It benefits us. It benefits you. It benefits our customers. So we're happy to do that. Outside of that, very good comments, and we'll take them all under consideration. So thank you.
Thank you. And now the next number that we'll call on is the last 4 digits, 3520. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, 3520. If you are on the line and have a question or comment, we'd be happy to take that now. And if you would like to speak, it's *6 to unmute. So we'll just give it another minute, 3520. Okay. So moving on to the next, we have a number that is like a call-in ID number, 26696687. If you are on the line and have a question or comment, you can *6 to unmute. That's 2666966687. And then I do not see Representative Ramos on the call anymore, but if anyone that's joined in with him did have a question or comment, we'll give it another minute if you'd like to call in or type your question or comment into the chat box. And anyone else that's joined via computer or mobile device, if you would like to ask a question or comment, you can do so by typing it into the chat box. I know there's a little bit of a delay with the video.
Yeah, Katie, it seems like there's a delay. Someone is trying to unmute, but is having a hard time.
Okay.
I
can unmute.
You can unmute her?
Yep. Oh, maybe we can't. Oh, here we go.
Someone's coming back in also.
Good evening. If you have a question or comment that you'd like to share, you can unmute now. This is Representative Ramos, or his phone number is the 5356.
We have a few technical issues to work out yet.
The last 4 digits of that
Hello?
caller is 3520.
There. Okay, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hello? You can hear me? That's a little louder. Okay.
We can hear you, but there's a bit of an echo. But if you want to try stating your name and your address and then your comment or question.
Commissioner Otero, do you want us to try to call the 3520 number?
Yeah, can you do that? Can you
Can
call
you hear
her?
me?
Oh, no, we can't.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
My name is Lisa Cook Whitley. My address is 195 Breckwood Boulevard. Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Okay. This is a question of clarification. I just want to know what exactly is an estuary, if I'm using that word correctly, of national significance? What is that?
An estuary of national significance?
That's
Long
right.
Island Sound.
What's that, Jamie?
Long Island Sound.
That is correct.
Yeah. An estuary of national significance is a designation that's been given to portions of Long Island Sound. I'm assuming as this relates to something with the Connecticut River. So it's a designation given by the Environmental Protection Agency and probably the National Marine and Fisheries jurisdiction relative to a natural environment at the discharge of the Connecticut River.
Okay. I thank you for that. So how would you know if your city falls into that category?
I don't, we are not within that estuary for certain. I couldn't speak to other communities. Can I ask what this is in relation to, or what the context is as it relates to the Water and Sewer Commission?
Sure. In watching the slides, the term estuary came up. I've never seen the word, I've never even heard of the word until today. So I did of course, a Google search, and I was reading about it, but it still doesn't make too much sense to me. So who better to ask than you?
That's good. I appreciate that. All right, so now that I know the context, I don't recall seeing it in any of the slides, but that relates to new regulations for nutrients as it relates to discharges from wastewater treatment plants all along the Connecticut River, not just in Massachusetts, but in Vermont and New Hampshire. And so my guess is that it's related to new regulations, of which we are in the process of spending, I think, about $35 million at the wastewater plant to comply with the new regulations. So that is part of the loans that already exist to fund infrastructure improvements. And that's a great example of new regulations requiring us to spend money to be in compliance. And so my best guess, and I think it's probably right, is that if we're talking about estuaries, it has to do with Long Island Sound and nutrient limits, particularly nitrogen, that were put into our wastewater permit, our new wastewater permit last year.
Darlene mentioned it in her presentation about the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I need to pay more attention.
All right, if there are any more questions, we're happy to take those, or comments. You can *6 to unmute. We'll give it a moment because we know that there's a delay, and you also can type into the question and answer box, and we can address those questions or comments from there as well. Just give it a moment. Again, it's *6 to unmute. right. Well, it doesn't seem like there's any more questions or comments. But again, as a reminder, we are available if you would like to submit a question or a comment to us at any point prior to the vote on the budget on June 15th. You can do so by emailing info@waterandsewer.org or calling 413-452-1302. And all of the information that has been presented here tonight will be available on the Commission's website, including a recording of tonight's presentation. So I will turn it back over to Josh to wrap things up.
Great. Thanks, Katie. I do want to thank the Board of Commissioners. Each of them has a hard job listening each and every month to the trials and tribulations of trying to deliver what really is a miracle every day, turning on your tap and getting a clean glass of water and flushing your toilet and having it go away and not having to think twice about it. So I'd also like to thank all of our staff who not only help prepare for this annual event, but also all the staff behind the scenes that work 24/7, 365 to deliver our services. They are indeed true public servants and are proud of that. And we are proud of our mission here and believe we are making an impact on the communities we serve. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Chairman Rodriguez to see if the board has any comments.
Thank you, Josh. Any comments from? So first of all, on behalf of the commissioners, I'd like to thank the public that participated. We're always glad to see that there's interest in what we do, whether it's good news or bad news. The fact of the matter is, it's a service that we're all providing to the public. And the challenge in water and sewer is that's probably the most significant thing we have for modern society, because without water, we don't have a society, and without clean disposal of our sewage, we'd have major health crises. But the challenge is to make all that transparent and invisible to the everyday person. So people who do attend these meetings would greatly appreciate that. And also on behalf of the commissioners, I'd like to thank the staff that put this together. There's a lot that goes into this, and this probably is the tip of the iceberg of the information that they would love to present. But there's limited time. So I do appreciate it and look forward to this next year as well. And that's it.
Great.
Thank you.
With that, Norm,
Hearing is adjourned.
the hearing is adjourned. Thank you for your attendance. Okay, Katie.